Hello there, my RPG lovers, and welcome to another video. Back in February of this year, we got to play the demo for the Gothic Remake.
Welcome to my new life, I guess.
I made a few videos about that Naira's demo, including a review and some streams. A lot of people, including myself, have left the feedback to developers, which was one of the main points of the demo. Even that demo got some updates which addressed some big issues, like improving the sluggish controls. And since then, we got a couple of new gameplay clips and various info about the game. There was another demo which included a lot of new updates and gameplay changes, but unfortunately it was not available for the public. Well, kind of. They featured this new demo at PGA in Poland and some other events, I think, but that's about it. They shared some screenshots and some short clips got leaked on YouTube, but it was nothing major. However, we can finally see how the real nameless hero looks, which was pretty cool. A day before I started working on this video, Alkima dropped a massive gameplay update where we can see a lot of new combat videos. They showcase different mechanics and combat features, as well as all the major changes they made from the old builds. The game looks so much smoother to play now, and it seems like the combat is on the right track. There are still some small issues I noticed in one of the clips, but we'll get to that soon. So, we're going to cover all of these updates. I'm going to show you these combat clips and give you my thoughts about all of this. Alkima said they don't exactly want to copy the combat system from the original game, even though it's mainly inspired by Gothic, obviously. The combat in the remake will have the same philosophy like in the original game and a lot of similar features. However, there is one big change in the remake, which will hopefully make the combat a lot better in general. It's related to how combos work, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. Alkima said the goal is to make every weapon type look and feel a little bit different. The original idea of the Gothic combat is still there, which includes new animations and timings based on the character's mastery level. That's not going anywhere, and it shouldn't, because it's a huge part of what makes Gothic, well, Gothic. First of all, the combat in the newest build of the game looks way smoother, and I would assume it's more responsive. One of the reasons for that is the ability to cancel your attacks or interrupt them with a dodge or a block. This action will now work instantly as soon as you press the button for block or a dodge. You can see the massive difference between these old and new clips. The player in the old build is spamming the button for block, and it takes forever for the nameless hero to actually start blocking. And as you can see from the clip, it happens instantly in the newest build. There are a couple of different clips where they showcase this, and yeah, like I said, I'm pretty sure this will make the combat way more responsive in general. I mean, you never know by just looking at animations and not playing it for yourself, but it seems logical to me. They also pointed out that this only works if your character mastery levels are higher than untrained. If you never played Gothic games before and you don't know what this means, it's actually pretty simple. When you start investing leveling up points into some skills you like one-handed or two-handed weapons, you will gain new combos and animations. You start playing the game as untrained character, so that's the name you'll see for all of the skills your character has. Until you level up, find a trainer and invest those leveling up points into increasing those skills. Despite these new changes, your character is still supposed to suck at combat early on until you start gaining experience and leveling up. That's just how Gothic works. I'm pretty sure a lot of these sound effects are just placeholders because they are pretty bad, to be honest. It sounds like you're hitting a rock instead of flesh, and the sound effect doesn't even play against some NPCs. So yeah, that's definitely still work in progress. Gothic Remake will be changing how the block mechanic works in general, while keeping a similar parry mechanic from the original. This wasn't possible before, but now you can just trigger the dodge with no issues while holding the block button. And speaking of blocking, this wasn't possible in the original game. You couldn't just actively block attacks with your weapons, you could just try to time it properly against incoming attacks. It was more like a parry mechanic, basically. It will be interesting to see how they handled this mechanic in the remake. We already know that there is a parry mechanic that you can do in the remake, but it was way too forgiving in the first demo. I'm surprised they didn't even mention this mechanic in the new update, but maybe it's just not ready. You might have noticed that the nameless hero moves a lot faster now when transitioning from normal gameplay to combat. Here is the reason for that. Your character will no longer make a small pause or stop the movement completely before he starts attacking. It sounds like a small difference, but it seems like it makes the combat a lot more fluid. When I posted my review for the first demo, some people commented about the sliding foot animation on the nameless hero, which looks pretty bad. The new update completely fixes this by replacing the sliding foot animations. Only when you watch this comparison you realize how bad it was in the first demo, so I'm glad that's fixed. Speaking of new animations, we got to see the rework of Master level 2-handed sword skill. I'm definitely going for that 2-handed build in my first playthrough, so these kinds of updates are very cool to see. And I would say these animations look pretty good in general. The spinning attack reminds me of Witcher 3 a little bit. 2-handed playstyle in the original Gothic was kind of weird, especially in the early game. I recently completed another playthrough of Gothic 1 and I was playing a 2-handed Templar, and it took so long to finally get my hands on a 2-handed weapon. I forgot how annoying it is, actually. You would have to invest leveling up points into 2-handed mastery as soon as possible, but you won't be able to get your hands on a 2-handed weapon for a long time, unless you know exactly where to look. I really hope they will address this in the remake and make 2-handed playstyle more viable in earlier chapters. The easiest fix for this is probably just to add them to vendors' inventories so you can buy them earlier. Anyway, what's probably the biggest combat update is how the combos work. I think this will change the feeling of the combat quite a bit, and I'm also wondering how is this going to work with mouse and keyboard. You basically have 3 attack buttons on the controller that you can use for combos, and the whole presentation is done on the controller. In the original game, you would also use 3 buttons for combos, but it was not exactly the same. You would need to hold the left mouse click and then use W key for combo attacks and A or D for side attacks. While the new update makes it impossible to press the same attack button for executing combos. We can see the player using the combination of 2 or even 3 buttons to create a combo. The older build of the game allowed you to spam 1 button to create a combo, but that's no longer possible. I think this could be a great way to add more depth to the combat, but I would have to try it out for myself before I give you my opinion about it. It sounds great on paper, and I hope it will be great in practice as well. It also makes sense if you think about it, and they already said they don't want to just copy and paste the old combat system, so changes like this are to be expected. In Gothic 1, the combos would change as you progress, but the way you execute combos remain the same from the beginning to the very end. You just get more attacks in the combo and new animations. Then we have new finishing animations updates. These attacks are supposed to finish a combo chain and they can apply a knockdown on the enemy. We are not exactly sure what are the necessary requirements for the knockdown, or it just happens every time you finish a combo, but that would be kinda dumb. We have no extra info about this, but I assume they're going to try and balance this out. It will probably depend on a few factors, like the enemy level, your mastery level, and weapon. Speaking of knockdown effects, the nameless hero can also be in the same situation. What's described as special enemy attacks can knock you down, which includes human and beast attacks. We can see how you can be knocked down by an identical 1-2 combo that you can use, as well as some cool animations like the tail swipe by the snapper. I guess it makes sense to expect these knockdowns a lot more when you're fighting bigger enemies, like the Shadow Beast. It could be a bit OP if just a simple combo can trigger it, but we know very little about this mechanic in general. This is probably the only clip of this bunch where we can see some problems with the hitboxes, especially with the Shadow Beast. We can see the nameless hero getting hit before the animation for the attack ends, which doesn't look good, and I would assume it doesn't feel good either. It's easily noticeable, but I don't think it's a huge concern, and I'm pretty sure they are aware of this. So I just hope they will polish up all of these mechanics before we get the game. Last but certainly not least, we have a new lock-on camera. The new lock-on camera positions itself a little bit above the nameless hero to give us a better view of the surroundings. It will be interesting to see how this is going to work in closed environments like caves, but it looks pretty good in the open world. It's also worth pointing out that you'll be able to make the camera look very similar to the original game. It should be just an alternative option that you can just toggle off or on in the menu. And those will be all the major combat updates in Gothic Remake. I think the combat looks so much better after all of these updates. It also looks way more responsive and less clunky. It will look and sound way better when they change those placeholder sound effects. I believe that should give the combat a much needed sense of impact and that oomph. But it looks like they're on the right track, and I hope they manage to finish everything before the release in early 2026. They said they wanted to have the combat done by Gamescom 2025, but that didn't work out. Which kind of worries me a little bit, because the release date is early 2026. So I wouldn't be surprised if they push the release date a little bit, but those are just my pure speculations. I mean, I hope not, but if it's absolutely needed, I wouldn't mind waiting a couple of more months to get a much better game. And of course, you can count on me being here to inform you about all of this, as well as future major updates for Gothic Remake. I was waiting for some combat news ever since Naira's demo, and I'm glad we finally got them. Anyway, tell me your opinion about these combat updates in the comments below. Do you think the game looks better, and are you happy with what you see? Leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more content like this. And if you want to go a step further, consider supporting your boy by becoming a YouTube channel member or a Patreon. Huge thanks to all my current supporters, and I'll see ya in the next one.